Hello, and thank you for checking out this message from Grace Church San Diego. Imagine a family or community so divided, they never wanted to see each other again. Views on race, politics, religion, these are just some of the things that divide our communities and even our homes. Blended is a series about how uncommon and incompatible people cannot just learn to live compatibly, but are called to meaningful fellowship together. We'd love to hear how Grace Church is affecting your life. Please send an email to info@gracesd.com with your story. Or if you'd like to help support our ministry financially, you can visit the website below so we can continue to help people find Christ and become his mature followers.
So I preface this opening with the fact that I have 4 young children, and I feel like Disney is kind of a part of my life. I feel like I'm always surrounded by Disney things. And so, Simba, I love the movie Lion King growing up, and so feel free to participate if you feel me on this. Simba sings, "I'm gonna be a mighty king, so enemies beware. Well, I've never seen a king of beasts with quite so little hair. I'm gonna be the main event like no king was before. I'm brushing up, I'm looking down, I'm working on my..." Yes. "Oh, I just can't wait to be king. Free to run around all day. Free to have it all my way." Now, we love Simba, right? And we love that he is... Thank you. Thank you for participating. So this was not a solo, because that would be terrible. Simba is, I love him, but I'm going to throw him under the bus. See, Simba cannot wait to be king. Why? Because when he becomes king, he's going to have no responsibilities at all. He's going to sit back and do whatever he wants to do all day, except for one thing. He's going to tell everybody else what to do. And it's going to be glorious being king and powerful over everyone. Reminds me of some of my kids. My 2 oldest boys are 4 and 6. Luke is a typical oldest son. He's like type A. He follows the rules. He wants to enforce the rules on everybody else and make sure everything does things right according to him. Now Bennett, my middle son, he is a classic middle-aged child. He's a little bit more easygoing. The rules are just made to be broken, right, for Bennett, and this really bugs Luke, and so Luke is constantly telling Bennett how to do things correctly according to him, and so Bennett is in this phase right now where he will just respond to Luke and say, "I know! Get off my back!" He will just say that when anybody, even us, will try and tell him what to do, and so I'll pull Luke aside and I'll say, "Luke, okay, listen, you don't like it when people tell you what to do. You want to figure things out yourself. Let's let Bennett just have some space and figure things out himself." And I'm not kidding you. A couple days ago, I'm having this conversation with Luke, and Luke looks at me and he says, "Dad, you're telling me what to do right now." And I'm like, it hit me, and I took the wind out of me. I was like, "You are absolutely right, Luke. How does it feel for me to tell you what to do?" He's like, "It's all good. I don't really care." And He doesn't like it, but he's getting that smart. Nobody likes to be told what to do. I have 3 boys, and so I like to grow in wisdom with different things that I'm going through in my life. And one of the ways that I choose to do that is by reading books. So I've read a number of books about how to be a father to boys. And one of the books I've read was called Raising a Modern Day Knight. And in the book, the author talks about this concept called destination sickness. It doesn't have to do with really raising boys, but he talks about it. It's this syndrome where a person has arrived at a point in their life to discover that they are actually nowhere. A sickness in the soul where you've worked so hard for something and you realize that it's for nothing. Is it possible that the pursuit of power, the pursuit to control and to get other people to do what we want for our own ends and for our own means will eventually get us nowhere? Is it also possible that if we have a heart according to Jesus, a certain kind of heart posture that is used and wants to be available to serve other people, that alone is where we arrive at a place of greatness? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Well, welcome to Grace. My name is Jesse. I'm the campus pastor here. So glad that you came. Online campus, Facebook Live, however you're joining us. What's up, camera people? Love you guys. And I want to give a quick update on Tim. If you're new to Grace, to this church, our lead pastor, Tim, diagnosed with cancer last Monday. He had his first procedure, got an update on Friday. And if you're not friends with him on Facebook, this is what he posted just a couple days ago. Our family received the good news yesterday that my cancer is only stage 1. I will have a follow-up surgery soon to complete the tumor removal and determine future treatment. Thank you for the incredible love, prayer, and support that we have received. Please continue to pray for those that battle this ugly disease every day. And I personally know a number of families from this church, young and old, that are fighting it. Our God is a healer and is touched by our infirmities. Hashtag greater joy. Hashtag he is our healer. So isn't that awesome news? He's going to be here for a long time. That is great news. Well, we're going to be opening up our Bibles to Mark chapter 10, verse 35. If you need a Bible, the ushers are going to come down. What's up, ushers? Love you guys. Some people just like to have a book in their hand. So if you don't have a Bible, raise your hand. They will hook you up. Mark 10:35. Rowing a boat is a great image of team. Imagine that two of these 4 guys were rowing in one direction and the other 2 were rowing in the opposite direction. It doesn't matter how talented, how strong, or how good you are at your craft. If they're going in the opposite directions, they're going nowhere. They might be going in circles. However, if they can somehow get themselves synced up to be rowing in the same direction, they are flying through that water, accomplishing amazing things. The same thing is true when it comes to teams, when it comes to organizations, whether that's a team of 2 or a complex organization of many. If you can get moving in the same direction, you can become unstoppable. People will often see my wife and I with a few of our kids at the park or at the store or whatever and be like, wow, how do you do it with 3 kids? And then we'll be like, well, there's actually one sleeping in the stroller. They're like, what are you, nuts? And my most typical response is, we are a great team. My wife and I, we communicate, we do it perfectly. It's like no, we are very flawed in this, but we are a strong team. We've learned how to be one. 2 or more people moving in the same direction. It sounds simple, but it can actually be very painfully difficult to accomplish because we are different people, imperfect people trying to accomplish things. There's inherent dysfunction in this equation, whether it's family, amen, sports, work, or a church movement. There's an author named Patrick Lencioni, and I love his books on leadership and organizational leadership, and he wrote a book called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's a fable of a story of this corporate executive team that's very dysfunctional. There's a big egos on the team, and there's all this indirect kind of stabbing each other in the back, and so they hire a new CEO. Her name is Catherine, and she comes in and takes this dysfunctional team and creates a healthy team. And throughout the book, as they're going through the story, Lencioni is introducing these 5 dysfunctions of a team. The first one is an absence of trust. When there is a lack of honesty, a lack of vulnerability, you have a breakdown in the team. There's a dysfunction. When you can believe that the other people on your team have your best intentions in mind, even if they make mistakes, if you know that deep down they're flawed and I'm flawed and they make mistakes, but they really care about me, there's a sense of health. The atmosphere changes when we begin to be human and treat each other as human and be able to be real. The next dysfunction is a fear of conflict. The author, Lencioni, paints this picture of this artificial harmony in this dysfunctional team where it seems on the outside to be healthy and to be functioning, but really they don't like each other and they're competing for power. And they're stabbing each other in the back and really don't like each other. A healthy team is able to have debate, discussion. They're able to admit their mistakes, to show weakness and concern for each other, and they're not afraid of being reprimanded for having weakness, for making mistakes. When there is a lack of conflict, it shows that there's fear and there's mistrust on the team. There needs to be this healthy kind of debate. The next one is a lack of commitment. This one has to do with people on the team not buying into the decision. That everybody on the team has to have a voice, needs to be able to at least have input into the plan and the decision making, even if their input is not the one that they end up going with. That just by having a voice creates this sense of ownership and commitment. The next one is avoiding accountability. It's a dysfunctioning team when there's low or no clear standards of what it means for the organization or the team to function. Because there's a lack of pursuit of excellence, not perfection, but a pursuit of excellence and clear measurable standards of what that looks like. When you don't have that laid out, you can't hold each other accountable to what that looks like. When you're associates and you are committed to doing quality work, that's a healthy environment. When you're committed to making things better and better and better, and you are able to hold each other accountable, that is a healthy team. The final one is inattention to results. The only true measure of a team is to create the results that you are shooting for. Otherwise, what you doing? You're just having a powwow. A team is designed to accomplish certain things, results. Now, the question is, what are the results that you're shooting for? To be inattentive to the results means that you are more concerned with promoting your own career versus the team winning. You have to get to a point of recognizing, is the collective mission more important and the team winning more important than me having recognition? Status and ego is a major dysfunction on this top level of a dysfunctioning team. Did you know that Jesus put together a very ego-driven team, a very career-advancing kind of team? Let's check it out in verse 35. And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, they came up to Jesus and said to him, "Hey, teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask you." It reminds me of Luke, who came up to Des one time and says, "Hey, Mom, get me a cup of water." True story. You did what? Where did you learn to snap like that? That is so disrespectful. No, you didn't. And so Jesus backhands his disciples and says, "What are you thinking?" Nope, he handles it better than that. And he said to them, "What do you want me to do for you?" I love how Jesus, he's engaging with them to try and not humiliate them or reprimand them or punish them, but to change their heart. And they said to him, "Hey, grant for us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left hand in your glory." They're so concerned with glory and they want to be a part of it. Why? Because in verse 33, just a few verses earlier, Jesus told them that they are on their way to Jerusalem, the royal city. And they have it in their mind that Jesus is on his way to restore the glory of the throne of King David, that he is the messianic king that's going to kick out the Roman Empire, and they want a piece of the action. With the new information that Jesus has revealed to them, just a few verses earlier, James and John are like, we got to jump on this right now before the other guys. We got to advance our career. We got to move up the corporate ladder because timing is everything. And if we don't get to it first, the other guys are. They believe that positions of eminence and superiority is going to matter in Jesus' kingdom. Because I believe that they think that Jesus is going to reign from Jerusalem. But then there's all these other little communities, Jewish communities throughout the Roman world, these synagogues that are going to need positions of leadership and authority. And they want to be in it. There's a divergence in an understanding of what glory looks like between Jesus and his disciples. They think it's controlling other people for their own ends, as we're going to see. And Jesus, 3 times in the last 3 chapters, has clearly articulated to them, I am going to be spit upon. I am going to be mocked and beat and humiliated. I'm going to end up dying on a cross. And I want you to come follow me. And all they can hear is, wah, 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 wah. What kind of benefits? What's the benefit package? Do I get a 401k? Like when I get to sit in your glory, Jesus? There's this growing divergence in what the future of being a part of Jesus' kingdom looks like between Jesus and it's this internal, hidden distance separating his closest followers from their master. Jesus understands that he must address this growing gap and division and divergence in the hearts of his followers. There's much at stake. There's much at stake. How is it possible that these 12 who have spent 3 years with Jesus, who have watched him, who have talked to him face to face, who have been poured into by Jesus, how is it possible that they can be so close and yet so far from understanding what it means to be a follower of him and what the future looks like? Is it possible for the same thing to happen to us? Or are the disciples, they're like, what a bunch of losers. I would never be like them. Good thing I'm better than those guys. Is it possible that it happens all the time? I unfortunately hear story after story of marriages that just crumbling because of ego and pride that both husband and wife just can't get over. The stakes are so big in not understanding what it means to have the heart of God in your heart. In premarital, I often will help the couple understand that you are a team meant to accomplish amazing things by serving each other, not by competing. That you are serving each other 100% and 100%. We don't do this perfectly, but we try to. That when you have a mindset that I'm in 50%, she's in 50%, I do my standards and then I put my feet up on the couch. And I'm like, why aren't you doing your share? Get to work or whatever. It creates this sense of entitlement. But when you can both have this perspective of, I'm not doing it to get anything in return. And I'm not doing it because I'm trying to be better or whatever, but I'm really trying to just get all the things done that needs to get done for us and for our family and for our future. It just creates this cycle of health. And over 10 years of marriage, things are just getting done in incredible ways. I'm like, oh, that was awesome. I didn't even know that was going to get done. And it's done. And the same thing goes back and forth. Husbands are meant to lay down their lives for their wife in the same way Jesus did it for the church. And that doesn't mean if you're going to get mugged one day, which probably will never happen, you take a bullet for your wife. No, it means laying down your life on a regular basis to emotionally connect. And I understand, I am not an emotional person. I needed some more air in that breath. It's difficult, but this is what it means to serve. I understand. It's difficult to do the stinking dishes day after day or whatever. But at least I don't have to die on a cross. Verse 38, Jesus said, you do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink or to be baptized with the baptism to which I am baptized? And they said, bring it on. They do not understand that the cup and the baptism he's about to be punished for the punishment that we deserve. He's about to take on the sin of the world, everything that you and I have ever done that hurts God, hurts others, and hurt ourselves. And he says, can you handle that? And they say, yep. Clearly, they don't understand what it means. You got to be careful what you ask for. Because Jesus does say, you are going to participate in this glory. But this glory is going to be an association of suffering, a painful destiny. He says, the cup that I drink, you will drink. And with the baptism which I am going to be baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left, it's not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared. A couple observations about this. Number one, I love that Jesus is so secure, so confident in himself as God, with clothes on, with a body, but in his role in the Trinity, that he's like, I know my part, and I'm not jealous of the Father at all, that he's got his part, he's going to decide how that's all going to work. I love that about Jesus, that security that he has. Number two, he states the facts. He says, you will participate. He doesn't pretend that it's going to be easy to follow him. An honest look at the future, and he says, I know it's going to be painful, but I want you to step into it in spite of that. I want you to trust me because it's going to be great. It's going to be worth it. One important crucial recognition is that the baptism and the drink is different for Jesus than it is for his disciples. For Jesus, it's this selfless giving of himself for the sins of the world. For the disciples, it's this suffering for the sake of others. This is the cost of discipleship. For marriages, for families, for churches to thrive, there is a cost. Now, check this out. The rest of the disciples, they're in earshot of this whole thing that's going down. And in verse 41, and when the 10 heard it, they began to become indignant at James and John. Why? They are jealous that maybe somehow James and John have just kind of they've secured some sort of advantage over them. What is it revealing? That the 10 are no better than the other two. That they want the same thing that they want. That the two, you know what I'm saying? They want to be in those positions of authority and glory. This is Jesus' dream team. This is the best he could come up with. I'm grateful for the honesty that the scriptures portray of who Jesus calls. That they are ordinary, everyday people that are quite broken and quite flawed. But Jesus said, perfect. I'm going to use this imperfect person to reveal my glory. I'm going to change them. They're going to get changed in the process. It's going to be awesome. So Jesus senses the tension, the elephant in the room, and he says, called them to him and said to them, you know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles, they lord it over them. And their great ones, they exercise authority over them. Incredible. Jesus' leadership in sensing this animosity between them, this jealousy, and he brings them face to face. He doesn't text them or whatever. He doesn't email them. He brings them face to face and says, we gotta hash this out, guys, because this pettiness has the power to topple this whole thing. We have to address this. Your hearts need to change. He says the typical rulers, they lord it over them. They dominate and they oppress those who are under them. And those who are great ones, they exercise authority. They exploit people for their own ends, for their own means. And I believe that what Jesus is saying in this, behind like kind of indirectly, or I'm trying to think of the right word, is be careful your judgment of them, of these who you perceive as the rulers and the great ones. Be careful of your condemnation of that you despise them, because if you are where you're at right now, if you get the power that you're looking for, you will become just like them. It's in their hearts. And Jesus knows that if he can change their hearts, the outcomes will naturally flow. So Jesus gets to the heart of the matter in verse 43. But it shall not be so among you, but whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first, would be first among you, must become the slave of all. Jesus is saying it is going to be different for us. We are not going to be like everybody else. If you want to follow me, you are going to have to be different. He sets a new level, a new value for every person that wants to say, I'm a Christian. And says, we are going to be radical in the way that we serve and put other people first. The first one must become your servant like a household servant. But the second one, the slave of all, is the Greek word doulos, which is a slave. Like you are owned by somebody else and you don't determine what you want to do. Your purpose and your actions are used not for yourself, but for other people. This radical cost of discipleship. And somehow in this dying, I mean, that sounds terrible, is the way that you become great, is the way that you become alive. And he says it must be this way. There is no middle ground. There is no other option. This is it. It must be this way. Only by radical service can you become great. Which way is your heart headed? And nobody knows. Maybe some people know. But which way is your heart headed? Are you so committed to your version of Jesus, the vision of what you think Jesus has for you and what he can accomplish for your life, that all you can hear is, Jesus, wah, 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 wah. But really what I want you for is X, Y, Z. Is it possible that in your heart, you're going to get to a place called destination sickness, where you're going to arrive at a point and realize, I've gotten nowhere. It's been meaningless. I love this quote. The measure of a person is what he or she does with their power. Are you using your power, your energy, your imagination, your time for the sake of other people? And you can't just intellectually get it, otherwise you don't get it. It has to take action. You have to put feet on the ground and it has to be lived out. Me and some of the pastors and some other people from the church have started a podcast called God and Me, and Wednesday mornings we invite special guests to be a part of it. This last Wednesday there was this amazingly courageous, smart, talented young woman named Hannah who came. And she shared her story of how she grew up in a church. And at some point she shared that she said that she came and she told people that she's bisexual. And she was not. She shared a number of different stories, and you can listen to it on the podcast. But she was very courageous and very authentic, where she felt like she did not belong. And can you imagine having something in your life where the church, if they knew about it, they're like, you don't belong here? Doesn't that break your heart? It breaks my heart. And she has left the church, and she was hurt by the church, but she shared a story about, and I'm so proud of this, but one of the staff of our church that was her neighbor. And she has a physical handicap, where she has a cane and a walker, and young girl, and how he would regularly, when he would see her, help her carry her groceries and all of her, whatever she needed, he was there to serve her and to love her and just to be there for her. Not because she's some project, but because she's worthy to be loved. And as she's sitting there sharing, surrounded by all these pastors, she just feels like, I could just sense that her heart was beginning to open up in a fresh way to the love of God. This has to take action. When it sinks deep into your heart, it has the potential to destroy parts of your life. But it also has the potential to give you a whole new kind of life. About 15 years ago, when I gave my life to Christ after getting out of jail for meth, I don't remember how I got it, but I started reading for the first time ever. That's another story. But I started reading this book co-authored by DC Talk, old school Christian music, and Voice of the Martyrs. And it was these short chapters about people, young and old, male and female, all over the world, who had been martyred. Some of them because they would not denounce the name of Jesus. Others because they were actively trying to love and tell people about the love of God to the very ones that took their life, and the stories are gnarly. And I'll never forget that book, it was like a devotional. I read a chapter every day for many months. I remember thinking, if I am going to do this, if I'm going to follow Jesus, I'm going to do it like them. I'm not going to be half in. I'm not just going to say that I'm a follower of Jesus. My heart is going to be in this thing. I'm not going to be ashamed of him, and I'm going to do what God wants me to do. I remember I was going to a church called Rock Harbor in Orange County at the time, and they made an announcement. And again, this is a year after getting out of jail. Hey, welcome to, anyways, I heard this announcement about that they needed some people to help set up for Easter. And you could just show up at like 5 p.m. on Friday night to help set up. And I thought all the people that were serving and welcoming and greeting and all those different, I thought they were like these super holy, important, special people. And then I eventually started serving with them, and I'm like, they're just everyday people. Some of them more screwed up than I am. But believing that it's really not about them, but believing that God somehow delighted in using them to do amazing things through their lives. And I began to see that more and more. These are just everyday normal people. And so I met Mark Howerton that Friday that I showed up, one of the pastors. And he invited me to become part of the Faith Adventure team, this evangelism team. And I started getting mentored and just getting poured into. And then I moved to San Diego to go to UCSD. And Mark Howerton got me connected to one of his friends, Ryan Pfeiffer, and I started serving at UCSD, leading Bible study in the dorms, and I ended up meeting my beautiful wife there. And I just think back to what would have life been like if I didn't show up that Friday night and just take that step of faith and met Mark Howerton. And what would have happened? Sometimes you just show up and say, God, what do you have for me here? And you have no idea until you show up what God has for you and for your life. I love this movie, Ladder 49, and the opening scene is powerful. It's a movie about firefighters, and the opening scene is this burning down warehouse. And you see all of these hundreds of firefighters. And you see like the captain and all of his people kind of with the maps of the facility and they're walkie-talking, and there's like the helicopter people flying around kind of giving that perspective, and there's people up on the ladder right here kind of helping people jump out, and there's like the guys on the truck who are making sure that the water's connected and the pumps are flowing, and there's the guys in the building with the hose pumping water. And what would happen if the guy at the truck, he's like, I don't feel like doing my job today. I don't need to connect that thing to there. They are all interdependent. Every single position is absolutely crucial. And in the movie, in the opening scene, they are all doing it. They're all risking their lives for this one guy who's stuck in the building. It's an incredible scene. The mission of Grace drives us. The mission of this church, we want people to find Christ because we understand what it means for someone if they don't find Christ. The ramifications today and eternally. So we create a space that people who are far from God or unchurched or been burnt by the church, where they love to attend and they want to come back again. That drives us. But not only that, but that you become a mature follower of Jesus. I don't care if you've been following Jesus longer than I've been alive. I hope that you feel God challenging you to step out in faith in ways that maybe you haven't before. It's not just about growing intellectually, although I hope that your mind gets blown every Sunday by how amazing God is, and you're learning something new. But we are this mission, this driven, coordinated teams to accomplish a certain mission. Now, I want everybody to pull out your connection card. Everybody, I know. Serve God in this way. I don't care if it's your first time to Grace. I don't care if you helped build this place. Pull out their connection card. I want you to look at the back. Contact me about serving. First impressions. If you are the kind of person that it matters that people that are uncomfortable at church or not sure if they are accepted in church, if you're like, I want those people to feel loved and accepted, if that is something that is important to you, you'd love the First Impressions team. Yeah, what's up, greeter, ushers, coffee, parking, some of the other ones. Kids, man, I'm thankful for them. Downstairs, taking care of my kids, teaching them about God. If they're here, all they hear is wah, 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 wah. And then we're free to like actually listen because I'm not holding my kids and being distracted by them. Youth, do you remember what it was like being a youth? I remember me in middle school and high school. I needed all the help I can get. As many loving people that were loving me well like God, that's important. Create a team. It takes 6 people every service to run the cameras. What's up, Ruth? To make sure the lights are doing right. Who's out in the back? I mean, you don't even know, but there's someone there called the switcher, all the way in the back that makes sure that the online campus is running right. There's someone in that cave every service. Behind the scenes, maybe that's you. Facilities, you just fix stuff and you want to set stuff up. Prayer partner, they get to have these sacred moments with people that share about what's going on beneath the surface. And you get to have this sacred moment of praying for someone. That's awesome. Project Reach, people that are serving the people around this neighborhood and across the seas that are at risk. Connect group leaders, that's my people. You love getting adults together and like having fun, getting community going and transforming. Administration, you just want to like make sure that when you fill this out, somebody responds. So you crunch numbers. All right. Now there are many good reasons for someone to not say, hey, I'm at a place right now where I can serve on a team to accomplish the mission of this church. And I recognize that. You may have too many things going on. You may be, whatever. You may be like, I'm just in a point where I need to be poured into, and I'm just not in a place to serve. No pressure. I don't want anyone to burn out. But I also believe that there are people who have been paralyzed by fear, or what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry. Pride, apathy, or you feel unqualified. You feel like I'm not good enough. I don't know how to answer people's questions. I don't feel holy or worthy enough. And if that is you, I want you to have a moment with God, when God just speaks into your heart and says, don't be afraid. I will be with you. Watch what happens when we start doing things together with the body. My body is called the church. It sometimes is inconvenient. A couple weeks ago, I was like, I don't want to go. I was like, I got to go. And I had to swallow my anger and my frustration and just be like, I'm doing this for Christ. I'm doing this to serve other people. And I'm so glad I did it. So many times I'm like, what am I doing here? And I remember, God, you've called me to be here. And I'm going to do it with as much joy in my heart. Not fake joy, but knowing that I'm here because Jesus is for your glory. And so maybe God is putting on your heart to start serving at Grace. Verse 45, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. Jesus, God himself, and to give his life for a ransom for many. You see, a ransom is the idea of like a prisoner of war, or someone that's been kidnapped, or a slave that cannot free themselves. But there's this exchange, a substitution of payment, so that the other person can be free. You see, Jesus gave up his life, the Holy One of God, the righteousness of God present in his being, and took on our shame. All of it, what you've done and what you will ever do. How much of it was of all of your shame and guilt was done after Jesus died on the cross? All of it. Anyways, that's a side point, but this is that Jesus died so that we can be ransomed from the bondage of sin and be freed in Christ and forgiven. And if you know that you need that today, we're going to pray a prayer and you can talk to God. And by faith in him alone, he will forgive you. There's no one that's too dirty. There's no one that's too broken that God cannot clean and love and restore and put back together again. Let's bow our heads and pray.